The southwest New Mexico is a giant archaeological site. The entire state has had people living over it for thousands of years, and now it's an archaeological site with cities and roads and railroads and airplanes flying over it. But it is still an archaeological site. The Pueblo people lived in villages. There were a number of hunter-gatherer groups who lived around them, the Apaches, the Navajos, the Utes to the north, people from the plains who traded with these Pueblo people. And when Europeans finally arrived in New Mexico, they found these people living here, and later when scientists came in, they found all of these villages, and the first question was, where did the people who built these villages go? And it's quite obvious they are the people who are still living here. And so this collection starts with pre-Columbian or pre-European pottery, which was made prior to, of course, the Europeans arriving, and go all the way up to pottery that was made last year, all by the same groups of people. You will see that these pots up here are very early pots. These pots date over 1,000 years at least. They're crude. You can see one of them is kind of warped. Their edges aren't well done. This pot over here with the low handles is probably a water jar. Some of these pots were used for cooking. The decorated ones were probably used as something for dining. And when designs were first put on them, people had been making baskets for a very long time. The designs that they used were the basket designs that they had used previously. You can get a textile design that's painted on the very early pots. Much of the design will look like something that you would put on a basket, and it looks like something that might have been woven or made into wicker. And then as people discovered that, lo and behold, you did not have to use straight lines, you did not have to use designs that were just in zones around the pot as a decoration, they discovered, aha, we can make swirls. So they went into things like this pot, which is a members pot. You can make animals, you can make curves, you can do effigies as well. People discovered that pottery could be made with various kinds of clay, and it depended on where you lived. For instance, if you lived where there was a lot of white clay, you could make lovely black and white designs. Whereas if you lived where there was red clay, you could make a polychrome design and use some white clay and some black clay and some red clay, and you end up making really quite sophisticated sets of designs. And then later, the Zuni and then the people who lived right here in the Rio Grande discovered there was some stuff that you could mine out of the hills that when you fired it, it ran and made a very strange sort of glossy design. It's actually lead. So we had lead glaze paint, and it was very, very fashionable. We have tested the people who ate out of these, and there is no damage to them. However, in order to get the lead glazed paint, you had to grind the lead ore, which was either cerussite or galena, into a tiny fine powder for painting. Grinding lead gets it into your lungs and gets it into your body pores, and very shortly afterwards you get lead poisoning and you die. So a lot of the young women who were grinding this lead up died afterwards, and I'm sure nobody could quite figure out why. Yeah, we're in the H.P. Mera collections, which is the type and survey collections for the Laboratory of Anthropology. It was started basically in 1931 by H.P. Mera, who had already been collecting for a number of years before that. What I'm holding in my hand here is a small, what we call a seed jar, and it has been painted by a woman who was a true artist. This is, they say, a Clagato black on white, so it would date back to the 1150 to 1250 AD. The concept of the design, it's in 4 panels, which is very, very unusual. The design is very complicated itself. The jar itself is absolutely symmetrical. Though you don't think of it, a seed jar with a flat top like this is very, very hard to make without the clay falling in on you. It's very, very well made in its form. And then this lady has, remember, taken leftover black clay and a chunk of yucca that's been chewed on as a brush, and she has managed to make this design go all the way around here and come out perfectly on this side, and I have never found any place where she ticked it to show that she was laying out a design. So this woman had all of these designs, which are quite complicated, in her head, and she managed to do all of this with a chewed-on chunk of yucca while she was sitting around under a windy sky with a little piece of pottery and a lot of talent. We can learn a lot from these artifacts. It depends on how you look at them. The modern artifacts, we can learn the aesthetics of the people who are making them and the way that they are adopting ancestral and modern ways and managing to put them together. Whereas the older artifacts we sometimes can use as ways to find where people lived prior to living where they do now, or find how people moved around, because we can trace the designs and ways of making pottery. We are able to track people's movements over hundreds and hundreds of years in various places around the Southwest. And if we can tell where they are, we can find out who they were trading with and sometimes how they changed over time.